Finding empowerment, embracing layers, yeah. We get to. Hello, Melissa Crook here. Welcome back to the Field Podcast today. I'm so happy to be with you. Today, we are going to talk about confidently setting healthy boundaries. And this sometimes can be like, oh no, here we go again with this conversation. But I want to give you tips that are going to feel this relatable and doable. And as you know, if you've been following me for a while, or if this is your first time with me, go to embracinglayers.com and go to that contact form. If you need more support on this following listening to this episode today, I've got all kinds of resources for you, but hopefully this will help you to be thinking and examining and taking a look at relationships, time that you give away, things you say yes and no to, and making sure that you're utilizing this practice of healthy boundaries to keep your life in alignment, to keep it at a schedule that's healthy for you and allowing you to show up fully resourced and ready for each day, not looking at your calendar and dreading what's coming. So let's get started in this conversation. Questions to ask yourself. Again, we did this last time with our self-care practices, and some of these questions are going to sound familiar because these things all tie together. The healthy boundaries tie with the self-care, tie with knowing what your values are, tie with communicating your expectations. They're all intertwined with each other. So first off, do you do this? Do you set healthy boundaries? Do you see that as a priority in your life? Do you even know where you need them? These are all things to answer. And if your answer to this question is no, hopefully this next few minutes will give you some ideas on how to get this started, or maybe it's time to reach out and get a little more support. But do you do this is the first question. The next question is, if so, what does that look like? Is this up to date? Does this still feel in alignment? Is there anything that needs to be recommunicated or adjusted in this? And then if you don't do this, what is keeping you from doing this? Is it, I don't even know where to start? Is it fear? Is it worrying about what other people will think? What's getting in your way of doing this? Okay, so for setting healthy boundaries, first of all, clearly communicating your limits to others and enforcing them is not only kind to you, it's kind to other people, because none of us want to give a partially resourced portion of ourselves or a time to someone else. No one benefits when we do this. So this is a really important question to be asking yourself. Are we expecting people to read our minds, or are we clearly communicating? When communicating healthy boundaries, it's important to use I statements. This is about your behavior, your choices, not someone else's. You're not asking someone else to alter their behavior. You're communicating what it is that you need to do for yourself. And then they have a choice whether they alter their behavior or not. But you're not asking someone else to change. That's not our responsibility. You're communicating in I statements what you need, what is healthy and well for you in this time, in this moment. And I think that can be really easy to get caught up in how someone else's behavior is affecting a situation. And it's like, well, if they just change what they're doing. No, that's not your responsibility. It's your responsibility to decide how you're going to respond to what it is they're doing and the boundary you're going to set in place for yourself, for your benefit. So really being clear on that. And we have practices here at Embracing Layers network where I practice this with people. I give you examples. So if this is something you're struggling with, we can talk more about that. But these are really important things that a lot of times, if you sit down and think about this, if you journal this and prioritize it, a lot of times you can come up with your own solutions around this. Where might you set healthy boundaries? This might be physical boundaries, physical space that you need. Some people have a really specific need in this area when it comes to physical boundaries. And this can go like, I'm not a big hugger, or that feels too intimate for this work situation to touch me on the arm like that. I mean, whatever it is that you need to honor you. So it might be physical boundaries, it might be emotional boundaries, it might be deciding who it is safe to talk about certain things with and who's not safe, or taking a time out in a conversation that's getting emotionally charged and you feel like you need to step away from to get some clarity and come back refreshed so you can actually move forward and get somewhere and not just get stuck in an emotional back and forth that's really just charging everybody up but not really solving anything or making anything healthier for anyone. It might be mental boundaries. I'm like, I'm really at my capacity today. Sometimes mental and emotional boundaries can go together. I've had to learn in my calendar for my schedule to not look at my schedule in terms of time in the day, but in terms of what is it going to require of my mental and emotional capacity, and then not overscheduling my mental and emotional capacity. So that might, so if I've got conversations lined up throughout the day that are just getting to meet people that might be possible collaborators down the road, those don't require usually a ton of my energy. It's a get to know. They're usually 15 to 30 minutes long. They might go a little longer than that, but not a huge energy takeaway. So I can probably schedule 3 or 4 of those in the day, as well as in between, responding to emails, setting up future appointments with them, depending on what we decide, those kinds of things. If I'm recording a panel or podcast episodes, and those conversations I know can sometimes require a little more emotional and mental output from me, both on what I'm sharing and what I'm taking in, then I realize I need some more space in the day for that. I'm not going to load those up, where, every 2 hours I'm scheduling another one. That's going to not be good for me or for the people that I'm recording with. So recognizing what your capacity is, but also in the mental boundaries, it might be who you feel comfortable discussing your mental health with, who you just feel comfortable sharing or inquiring about whether you have therapy or not with, and how they receive that. So all of these things can be areas where you set boundaries. Time boundaries, like I'm going to protect my time. I want to make sure I have space for myself to refresh. I need to make sure I have time for activities that nourish me, time in relationships that fill my cup and feel honoring, give that energy and time to my kids, my partner, my siblings, my parents, my best friend, my neighbors, my community, and making sure that you're honoring, and even in your workspaces, you're giving time boundaries. Like, this is going to take me X amount of time. You might be talking to your team or your boss about this. I'm like, this is going to take more time than you have slotted in my calendar. Can we talk about reflection on these time boundaries, and maybe actually meeting me where what I think is possible? And if that's not possible, what are we going to move to make that possible? It might be material boundaries, like, do I need all this stuff? Is this why am I getting this? Is this something that is going to add to my life quality? Is this something that's renewing and refreshing, fun for me? Or is this something just extra that I'm getting because I'm trying to soothe something else, or trying to keep up with the neighbors, or whatever it is? Can I afford this? These are the kinds of questions you can ask yourself with material boundaries. And boundaries with yourself. How do I talk to myself? What am I going to do to interrupt that narrative that's not healthy in my head? What's my course of action going to be? What am I going to do to interrupt that narrative when I start apologizing for something that I know is not my fault? What action can I put into place that's going to make that kind of an alert in my head to rethink that, to reframe that? So these are all examples of where and how you might set boundaries in your life and what they might look like. So healthy versus unhealthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries are flexible and allow for some degrees of closeness and intimacy while still respecting your own needs. Unhealthy boundaries may look like rigid boundaries that can lead to isolation, while porous boundaries can lead to feeling exploited and overwhelmed. So it's that understanding of the difference. And if you need a different word than boundaries, if that is somehow not a word that aligns with you or is triggering, it might be guideposts. It might be fences with doors. I mean, there's just different things. Find that word that works for you. But I think it's really important to, and sometimes you set a healthy boundary and over time it becomes unhealthy, or vice versa. At the end of the day, communication is kind and I statements and not about other people's behaviors, and room in the future to adjust if relationships change. Maybe you don't need that healthy boundary anymore, or maybe you need more of one. It just depends on the situation. So it's also something you're continually reflecting on to make sure that it still matches the season and situation you're in your life. So some ways to really think about this week is write down all the activities you're involved with each day. Identify which ones you feel most called or aligned to. And for the remaining ones, determine if it's time to say no to that commitment or to ask for help and support in fulfilling it. This can be a great beginning to determining where you might need to start placing some boundaries in your life if this is an area you're struggling in identifying. One of my favorite quotes from season 4 of the Feel podcast was from guest Valerie Rivera. And she reminded us, and you've heard me say this quite a few times if you've been following me for a while, but it's always worth revisiting. Remember, when you say yes to something, that means you're saying no to something else. Make sure you're okay with what it is you're saying no to. So these are some ways that can kind of get you thinking about healthy boundaries, where you need them, what might need to be communicated, what might need to be revisited, what's unhealthy, what's healthy, those I statements, all those things. And like I said earlier, I'm here to support you. So if you need more support in this, let's get together, go to embracinglayers.com, fill out that contact form. Let's talk more about this. But always remember, you are valuable, you are worthy, and you get to choose. Thanks so much for being with me today here on the Feel podcast. I'll see you next time.